Hey guys, how we doing? It's JC with HangarReady, and we've got a full house tonight. Along with me for the ride this evening is Jolly. How you doing this evening, Jolly?
Good, great.
Good. And also we have Turin. How you doing,
Hello,
Turin?
everybody. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Good. And then we have Callie Josh. How you doing,
Hey,
Josh?
good. How are you?
Doing great. Nomidius, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great.
And then finally we have, last but not least, Shapcap in our
Hey guys.
nation's capital.
Yep.
So,
How's it going?
how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So I'm just going to do talk about a couple little things before we get started with our first segment tonight, and that is, anybody here impacted by, snowgeddon that's been going on for the last week, besides me down here in Tennessee? Nom, did that hit you up there where you're at
Yeah,
all?
we got a good amount of the ice up here. Not so much snow. We probably saw about 3 or 4 inches of that. But I think some places nearby might have gotten like 6 or so. But the first couple of days of it, it was cars encased in ice the next morning, stuff like that. Having to chip your car out. That was always fun. But today was the first decent day with the sun shining all day.
Yep. And it's going to be even warmer here in the south tomorrow, so we should be rid of all that nasty snow and ice here soon. Anybody else? Jolly, how bad's the weather down there where you're at?
It was great. Had a couple of inches. No big deal. Very cold, I'll admit that one. But where I live is a mile high, and we get snow comes in, even 6 inches worth. By noon, it's all melted off the roads, and it's really a non-event.
And normally that's how it is here. But I have a sinking suspicion some of our viewers in the Texas area will be
different.
complaining a little bit about snow. So, okay, with that said, I think our first segment tonight, Jolly, you're going to get started with it, which is
we want to talk about
about this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jay, go ahead. Intro.
We're going to talk about the Xeno threat special that they just special mission or event that they just got done running. So go ahead and Jolly, take it away and kind of walk us through it.
A great event. I really appreciate RSI and CI putting that one together for us. I have to admit, the payoffs are really nice. I haven't paid that well since I figured out the bug for constantly selling Laranites as much as possible.
Over
again. But each time we did the operation, most folks I talked to, we got about 500K. Which is appropriate for the amount of time to spend on the operation itself, which is about an hour 15 or so. Or if you start from beginning to end, that seemed about right. So I was really happy with that one. There were a lot of advantages you could coordinate what you're doing. Okay, if you had org that wanted to do phases 1 and 2, it worked out really well because those are two different areas you're working at. There's a cargo aspect to it. There's a marine aspect to it. There's a fighter aspect to it, and a capital ship aspect to it. So it was an all-encompassing operation itself, which made it great in my opinion. I was really happy with that one and how it went. If you had a group together, all the phase 1 and 2 ops I did, I went anywhere from myself jumping in with a bunch of other unknowns, which worked out pretty well. We won those. But if you get together just 10 to 20 individuals from your own organization, communicating with each other across whatever voice chat you use, it went really smooth because no one, hey, so-and-so's got to do the cargo for this type or that type. So-and-so's got to cover the capital ships. The other one's going to cover the fighters. It worked really well for it. I know there's some complaints about PvP interference. I did not run across it. I know it happened. I see it as part of the game, okay? If there's pirates over there, a different system comes over here, you should expect there are pirates over here to help them out one way or another. So I thought it was a non-event. It's just something to have to deal with. No big deal. I thought it did a good job on a storyline. It was a little different having somebody give you a narration as you're doing your mission in terms of you're going the wrong way. Hey, we need more of this or we need more of that. I like that aspect of it quite a bit. Biggest problem I had was a lot of times with the Armistice zone they set around Jericho. You had to fire on the capital ship when it showed up. The interest showed up outside of that. Otherwise, you get a crime stat and then work against you. And we had some problems with that one, I have to admit. It was fun to fight in Idris. We didn't get to do that too often, but it was a nice legal way to get that ship out there. Besides doing the constant bounty hunting to find the Idris, probably take down the pirate Idris. This one would show up for you guaranteed. It was really nice. Overall, it was a great challenge. Good to see this little mission in the game. That's phase 1 and 2, guys. What do you think about it?
I loved it.
I really go ahead. I'm sorry, Turing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
No, I loved it. I think it was the first time you had a real integrated gameplay, and CIG was doing it in order to test their dynamic mission development system, whether or not players can impact by doing part of a mission what's going to happen in the follow-on phases of a mission. I mean, it was, I think it was very successful in that regard. It was challenging to be able to coordinate and move that cargo, but you actually felt like you were doing something. I mean, you really felt like you were doing something important. You kind of just stepped outside of the gameplay for a little bit when you were in the middle of the wrecks. Having the first person shooter aspect inside the wrecks, where you first had to go inside and clear it, that was challenging in and of itself too, because they didn't make it easy. I mean, it wasn't just walking in and stuff. You had to find your way down and go down inside of it. I think they could have put out a little bit more information about the types of cargo that you were picking up, especially the ones that were volatile, the ones that didn't need to have quantum. But all in all, I really enjoyed doing it, and I love the narration part of it as well.
Good, Josh. What were your thoughts on the Xeno threat? Did you actually get to run through it?
Yeah, I did, and it's interesting. I grabbed an org mate, and we went into pick up some cargo in my Mercury Star Runner. It's become one of my most used ships recently. And after we kind of figured out where you get the cargo out of one of the Starfarers, we backed up and opened up the door, and someone started shooting cargo into the door with the multi-tool, I guess, with the gravity attachment. Yeah, the tractor beam attachment. So one, I didn't know someone was in there. And so that was kind of a surprise. And two, I hadn't even thought about how to use that for cargo. So I thought it was a really interesting thing to see. And even more so, seeing people we didn't know working together. I mean, I don't know how many wrecks are there, but I think there's several. So having someone just sitting there and waiting for you to come by and then to just randomly be in that space, I thought it was a lot of fun. You had to be careful, though, because the first time we held cargo, or loaded cargo, nobody threatened us. The second time we had cargo, we maybe had a minute or two before we started getting pounded, and we had to go with what we had to get through. By the time we got it through and landed, we had some pretty significant damage. So it was a lot of fun. It was challenging. There was some good teamwork. I enjoyed certainly that first phase a lot.
Nom, I know you were on the big mission with us. What did you think?
All I can say is I had a lot of fun. It was a great thing. This is I think like what Turin, you touched on something there. You talked about how you stepped outside of the gameplay. You felt like you were part of something that was going to matter, because it's a little bit of this is going to be part of this kind of thing is going to build the history of the verse we play in. And so it's going to be fun. I'm sure the lore writers are really liking this. They're looking at how they're going to use this to develop the story as it goes along. So as far as the op we were on, when you got a whole bunch of your friends there, be aware. Sorry, Jolly.
That was phase 3. We're just looking at 1, 2.
Yeah, that was
Cargo
the last one. Honestly, I didn't do a whole lot on phase 1 and 2. So I can't speak to that one too much, but I did get the overall idea of what was going on. I took part in some of it. There was some, what you would say, a little bit of griefing, but you could just look at that as you have collaborators. You don't have to get all bent up about it. Most of the time, it wasn't that big of a deal. You just had to keep an eye out for randoms that might be acting a little weird. So it still worked out okay, I thought. When you got a whole bunch of your party mates there, it can be a little tricky to find where you're going in the star map, because there's so darn many white dots that are over. You know what I'm talking about, Jolly. It's like
Yeah.
trying to set a destination. And the only thing I got to say is the only real problems I had was when I crime statted myself a couple of times, and they were on me mostly. When I looked at it afterward, I got to get good. I got to be aware when you got a whole bunch of targets in the area. You just can't be mashing the fire button and just doing that constantly. You got to be aware of your targets, and you have a few stray shots hit a friendly ship, and now you got the crime stat.
I'm writing
So-
that down. Don't fly in front of Nom. Okay, got it.
Yeah, stay away from.
I
Nom.
said I learned from my mistakes. Let's move on.
I did crime stat due to the Armistice Zone thing. I think
Yeah.
that was the one design flaw in the event that that could have been. And I understand. I guess the Armistice Zone had been around Jericho because it was a station. Probably the tech is still the same no matter which station it is, but I did not know that, and I corked off a couple of rounds, killed a couple of Xenos, and before I knew it, I had a level 4, and I spent the night in jail. So basically, that's what I did.
I wonder about why that's that way. I mean, I would agree. That was the one time I got a crime stat that I wouldn't put on myself. Was that thing happening? But there was a problem with some of the griefers wanting to just play around and try to ram the javelin out of its dock, stuff like that. They're screwing with the
Yeah.
javelin inside there.
Yeah.
That may be why the Armistice Zone is that way.
Yeah, I saw videos of people doing that. So the Armistice Zone, you would get a crime stat if you took out a red target in the Armistice Zone.
Yeah, if you were firing
Yeah.
from the Armistice Zone out, so
Oh,
you would
out.
get. So the only way I really determine it is I look back in my criminal record once I landed, in the pokey for the night. I look back in it, and the first thing on my list is Armistice Zone violation. So I'm like, okay, so that I must have
That's
been
weird.
inside the Armistice Zone, and I started killing all the Xenos.
Yeah, they're gonna have to fix that because it's not cool that you're firing out at a hostile target and you get a crime stat.
But that happens around regular stations too.
Well,
Unfortunately,
okay,
yeah.
fine. Well, then,
Yeah,
then
so-
they definitely
so
need to fix it.
That's why I'm saying the tech is the same no
the
matter
defender
where
gets
you
penalized.
On phase 1, 2, the entrance was stationed outside the Armistice Zone. So you had to do is figure out, okay, if the station between me and the Armistice Zone, and the Idris, I have to fly around, get outside the Armistice Zone, and fire at the Idris,
Mm.
and still stay safe.
Yeah,
But
it was the fighters
was-
it was
Yeah.
the fighters that were swarming. They would come
Mobs.
inside and
the
really
ads.
close. And I corked off a couple of size 5s from my Harbinger and annihilated a few.
Oof.
And that was it.
Nothing but dust.
Nothing but dust and nothing but a criminal record. I was like doing this.
So, Jolly, you want to walk us through phase 3 and kind of talk to us about the
yeah,
the
the
mission that we ran?
phase 3 was the big battle, and I was really happy to see it. Grand total of 3 Idrises, 2 Hammerheads, and a lot of fighters, and it was really nice. They bring in with 1 Idris, 2 Hammerheads, fighters. You fight those guys, you kill that Idris. 2 more Idrises come in. You didn't kill off those Hammerheads. You have more problems with those guys, and more fighters come in. So it was great. Now we ran a 40-person operation, so we take over the server, which is great. What I wanted to have happen. You have to worry about griefers or somebody interfering and stuff like that. Control the whole thing in order to get it done. And it worked out really well for us. A lot of fun. We did have some losses. We had a Hammerhead. We would not normally take a Hammerhead in this fight. Turn and I talked about this at length. We had
For
2 strike
science.
groups. For science.
Science.
It's
We had 2 strike
science.
that had Turn help me out. 3 Retaliators, 2 Harbingers, 4 Sabers in each one of the strike groups.
Two
Our-
strike packages, yes. Mhm.
2 strike packages
Yep.
like that. The third one had a Hammerhead, 4 fighters, a Myth, I think is what we brought in.
Right.
And we realized, that Hammerhead is there to defend a target, not take out a target. We figured, what the hell? We're gonna have firepower here with 2 strike packages. We'll put the Hammerhead in. Orders for the Hammerhead would take out the other Hammerheads. And by the way, it did work. Our Hammerhead took out those Hammerheads, no problem. However, the Hammerhead was full focused on shooting down the other Hammerhead. Didn't notice the Idris putting his nose towards it,
Oh,
taking out with a railgun. So that worked against us in a bit, but hey, science. So we were happy with it. Had a lot of fun doing the whole thing. And the player who was piloting the Hammerhead, he happened to have 2, so it's no big deal. He just brought us the next one, and we continued along as was. So the 40-person org op was great. Real happy with it. The payoff was not as good in the in phase 3 as it was in 1 and 2. 1 and 2, like I said, about 500,000 K. Phase 3, at least 25K. Could be up to 50 if you were one of those who shooting down a lot of other fighters and stuff like that. So that's pretty good. It was a short mission, probably our biggest complaint. If you come with a proper force that's coordinated, you get it done real fast. And so I was kind of upset about that part. I thought it lasted a little bit longer compared to phase 1 and 2. Overall, the
you guys did
assessment
it
was
twice though, didn't you?
yeah, we did. Yeah, we did twice because
Twice in an
Because
hour and a
yeah,
half.
16 minutes. I think the first time we
Yeah,
took
it was
down.
really fun to watch. By the way,
Yeah.
But so you did it once. Everybody go back to Mick L1. log, go back to main menu, start it back up again, and do another one. That worked out really well for us. But it was a good challenge with right firepower. You can get the job done, no real problems for phase 3. I would have liked to see overall. Oh, that's phase 3. I'll go with my overall later on. But no, what do you got for phase 3?
What do you mean? What are
Well,
you
phase
asking?
3. That was the final battle, the one we did, the one you were involved
Comments.
Oh well, it was just it lasted a decent amount of time anyway.
Mhm.
It wasn't horribly short, but it could have been a little longer. As far as lasting long enough, not the mission itself, but the whole event. Honestly, should have for an actual. I know they did this primarily collecting data, so maybe they got all the data they needed, but I would expect it to last a little longer than that because everybody's schedule is a little different. There are people who didn't really have time for the actual because by the time they planned to get around to it, it had already gotten pulled from the live server. It had
Mhm.
already ended. So I would expect something like this to last at least a week longer than what it did, just so that everyone would have a chance to participate if they wanted to.
Yeah, I'd agree. The phases went by very quickly. I didn't have a chance to participate. The day that I had time to do it, the event had ended like 2 hours earlier. Like the whole thing was done. Like phase 3 was over. I literally logged in, and the first thing that popped up on one of the screens was the oh, you guys banded together and beat us, but we'll be back message from Xeno threat, followed by the yay, we did it from the UAE.
And the fireworks at Jericho.
Which, by the way, was very cool that they took over the screens and in the stores and the spaceports. That was pretty cool.
That was cool. I came out of the hab at Lorville and I heard the announcement and I looked up and it's playing on the overhead screen. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I popped out of an elevator at one of the spaceports and it was on like the screen above the coffee stand, which was neat.
Well, I would say this. They ran, I think, 96 hours on that second one tops. It wasn't much longer.
That wasn't long enough, really.
But I think that tells us as an org that we have to be able to do pop-up missions for stuff like that in, 48 hours or 72 hours, which is we got to figure out a way to do that.
We would have missed it if we'd waited a week for sure.
And we've got the strike package built, so that's not a problem in the future.
We barely slid under there. We did it Saturday, and then it was gone like Saturday night, Sunday, something like that.
Yeah, Sunday morning. Yeah, it was
Sunday morning. Yeah, it was gone.
So Jay, from an operational standpoint, what I saw in phase 3 was you really knew that you were in a space battle, and what I mean by that, you knew you were in 3 dimensions and you can be disoriented real fast. One of the things that we had an issue with in the second phase of phase 3 of the second run where the 2 Idrises come out, we had 2 strike packages, as Jolly said. It was really difficult for Sohawk and I to determine. I could have said, "Hey, I'll take the right one, you take the left one," but we're all disoriented. We're all flipped upside down. Scientifico, HW Scientifico was my pilot. He's trying to stay next to Nam, and we're just zipping around. Of course, Namidius had the cameraman on board who always wanted a better angle than what we currently
had. So
I'm
zipping and sagging everywhere.
So he's getting the strike package leader real close to where he probably should not be. But you really feel that you have the 3 dimensions, the 6 degrees of flight that you have within the space battle. That made it both exciting and challenging at the same time. So that part of it, I was really glad I was able to be in there and see that come off.
Yeah, I mean, the battle was a lot different. And, it highlights some of the things that you need. We need the ability to either get some type of bearing system and distance so that we can highlight targets, or we need some ability.
Pinning and sharing.
Pinning and sharing would help a little bit, but pinning and sharing only works so much. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it helped me because Scientifico pinned like the Idrises for me, so I could see on my screen when I was sitting in the turret where those Idrises were in relation to where we were at all times. So that helped me immensely to be able to try to keep some situational awareness, because even though you're sitting in that turret, things are moving by really, really fast, and he's still flying the spacecraft and flipping around and trying to maneuver. I lost orientation fairly quickly until we got that pinning thing back up so I could see where the Idris was.
Yeah, Freecurse just brought up a good point too, that the pinning was super important for the Hammerhead, for concentrating fire, for the Hammerhead crew, I should say.
And I think what Jay's talking about is if you've got 2 ships or 2 people on the ground or whatever, you need a compass rose, and you can be able to say a direction 270 degrees and call it out so that you guys can coordinate your effort against that threat or avoid it or whatever you want to do. I know CIG has shown that that's coming in the future, but I think it sounds like that would have helped in this case.
You're saying a coordinate system, basically.
Well, I don't know if coordinate system in space might. You're still 3 dimensions of that. But if I was able to transfer those pins, if we could pin as a command and control ship those Idrises, for example, then it would have been easier for Sol and I to direct our forces to pin 1 and his to pin 2, and we would not have been fighting the same capital ship at the same time.
Yeah, if you could designate, give them names or whatever.
Right, you could have like one command and control, even a Terrapin or something like that was able to do, basically an AWACS type operation, to be able to light those up and pass those to the actual strike package. It would be fantastic if you could do that.
Yeah, so what you're saying is if we took advantage of what they do in the real world today and applied it to the future, it might be useful.
If you bring back that targeting pod, you're out of here. So
yeah, don't talk about the targeting pod again.
You gotta laze it.
You gotta laze it.
My only point is that having the pilot pin doesn't necessarily help, because if you're flying and Soulhawk is flying in 2 different locations, you are still, even if you share pins with them, are not going to necessarily know which target is which.
Well, it's got a number though, Jay.
That's true.
One's got pin 1, one's got pin 2. Yeah. If I take pin 1 as strike package 1 and he takes pin 2 as strike package 2, then yes, we're still going to be disoriented. Now I'm looking like Chris Roberts when I'm flying.
Yes, you are.
You need the glow sticks.
You're still going to have to do this. You're still going to get this disorientation perhaps by being in 3 dimensions, but at least you can be reoriented real quickly by looking for your pin number.
If I was the MC, could pin both the targets and pass that information, which I cannot right now. So my 1 and my 2, 1 to Turin, 2 to Soulhawk. There's your targets. It would have been a lot easier and a lot better, but that's not in the game yet, if it comes at all. Overall, though, I'd say some of the negatives on it was hit and miss getting the mission, mainly in 1 and 2. You'd log in, and if the job is available, it'd be offered to you. We don't know if they're 90% way through or 10% way through or whatever the case may be. Is it waste your time? Sometimes if it's just finished up, there's a long regeneration rate before the mission comes up again. This led to a lot of server hopping in order to try to get that mission going at all. And like Gnome said, it was offered for a limited amount of time. 1 and 2 wasn't too bad. 3 was horrible in terms of the amount of time it was offered to us. We really could have used it more.
It was over like that.
3 days.
A lot of the players who are playing Star Citizen, they're weekend warriors. Okay, they're working or going to school full time, focusing on that. Saturday is when they have a chance to go ahead and game, and if you got to keep those Saturdays open for them, multiple Saturdays for people to get the experience and enjoy the game itself. That's something to keep in mind. I was disappointed the lack of javelin play. The only time I saw a javelin leave dock was in phase 1-2, and it came out of dock, parked about a click away, and sat there. I never saw it any other time during 1 and 2. I never saw it during 3 either. I would like to see that part come through.
You didn't see it at the end of our battle?
No.
Right the last few minutes of it, when we're going after the final Idris, it's parked like a few clicks off, and it's just hammering like the Idris and some other hammerheads. The shots were coming in. You can see it on Space Coder's video.
I'd look for it then.
It was
about an hour and a half in.
Yeah, I didn't. I was watching Jay's stream, and I didn't notice it.
See, that's the amazing thing. You got a huge javelin there in the area. What's the amazing thing about
nobody knew it was
3D
there.
space is trying. Space Coder was telling me, "Oh, the javelin's over there." I'm like, "Where?" I'm like looking around. It's so easy to get disoriented. You can't see something that big.
Well, again, that's why Bering and Azimuth kind of headings on these targets would be really handy.
At least relative, right?
Yeah, well,
relative
at least
to whoever's calling out. True.
Sure.
correct.
Well, and being able to pass that
Light
relativity to the rest of your people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like 9 o'clock from me.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
I'm
think
here.
that's why they're going to do a galactic plane.
They could.
They're going to have to do
Possibility.
something.
Stellar
I mean,
plane anyway.
I'd say
Yeah,
the missions also showed the value of torpedoes.
Mm,
Retaliators
yes.
ruled this particular mission. Now, when Polaris is coming to play and other bigger ships, I'll change my mind on that one. But for right now, the Tallies did a great job. I was really happy with that. I did not like the 40-player limit. I understand why it was put in place, but it would have been nice people, 50 people. We had 74 people sign up for a 40-person op, and I was bummed about that. No, the others, they did the op again on their own, less organized, and they won too. So I was happy about that one. But I would like to get 50 people there instead of just 40. It was perfect mission for organizations. Large organizations to get together 40 people at one point in time. It was great for us, and I really appreciate that fact completely. I was kind of hoping they're going to offer all 3 phases at once, 1, 2, and 3. You have to have come
Yes.
with a force structure with 40 people that can handle the FPS aspect of the game, the cargo aspect of the game, and the capital ship fighting part of the game, large number of capital ships fighting part of the game, and figure that problem out for yourself with 40 people. I thought that would have been a real great challenge for everybody to try to take on. But overall, I was really happy with it, and I'm hope these type of missions again in the future. You wrap up, Gnome?
I loved it. I hope they learned a lot from this, and the next one, hopefully, if it's at least this fun, it'll be great. I'm sure they're going to improve it as they go. That's what they always do.
Yeah,
Josh?
I mean,
Go ahead,
for
I'm sorry.
me, I think Jolly nailed something that I don't think can be overlooked. The idea of having several phases and having one phase affects the next phase builds more of a story and makes it something that you buy into. I think a campaign-like feature for events in the future would be a fantastic idea. And maybe even you could have a pause between them. So you do first phase, you come back for the next weekend, you could do the second phase or whatever. But I think that campaign approach is something they need to use a little bit more in the future. Now, for the downside, I was in a mission with, I believe it was you, Turin, and I brought out my Eclipse and I wanted to punch some big, size 9 holes into whatever. And I stayed away because the Eclipse is designed to be stealth and fire from distance. And come to find out, I think, Turin, you said 6K was the limit. And
Yep.
I had to come in really, really close with those big torpedoes. So I don't know what changes or why they made that, but they need to go back to allowing, especially a ship like that, to being able to be used from distance.
Yeah, we found that 6K was the distance for the size 9 torpedoes. They run out of fuel and they just they self-destruct at that point. So the retaliators, like Jolly said, ruled, but only if you got in within 4.5 and 5K to be able to cork it off and shoot. So,
But they can survive and move on.
Yep. My takeaway from this is a couple things, because I suspect CIG is watching. One, more players.
Welcome.
I know right now that's hard, but we've got to get up to 100 players per server, guys. We could have fielded 80 to 100 people
easy.
with a week's notice.
Yeah, I stopped the sign up at 74.
Yeah, we could have filled the 100-person server. And I agree with Jolly about having all 3 phases so that you have to do combined arms to make it happen. 2, being in a large org helps because it's easy to put together 40 people. The truth is that we probably could do something like this in 48 hours, I think, if push came to shove. Maybe 24, if it was the right 24 hours. We could put together a 40-person op and run it. What do you think, Jolly? You think that would
If
be
you gave me a
feasible?
Friday afternoon to a Saturday afternoon, yeah, I could do 24. You gave me a Monday to Tuesday, or
It'd be harder.
get 100.
Yeah.
Monday to Tuesday, a little bit tougher.
But a Monday to Friday, we
Oh,
probably could
no
do it.
problem, no problem.
So
But if you want, if you tell me of missions, you tell me at 4:00 on Monday afternoon, you want to do this on 4:00 Tuesday afternoon. Getting 100 people was going to be a challenge. Do that
40
same
would be
challenge to me
maybe
at 4:00
doable.
on Friday. You want to do it at 4:00 on Saturday? I could do it.
Oh yeah. easily.
Well, I would hope they would learn from that one bit is that everybody wanted it to last longer. They're going to have to make sure they include periods like the weekends where people are actually able to take advantage of these events and not come in too late.
I agree. And then, the other thing that I noticed that a lot of, I was just riding along streaming. I didn't have any real function other than, getting my pilot to fly too close to the Idrises for comfort, which was probably not the right thing to do since I was riding in the C2 ship with the mission commander.
With me.
Yes, I know. But we made a judgment call that it was reasonably safe to make those passes.
It was a beautiful explosion, though. Only took a
No.
little bit of shield
Amazing.
damage.
I think they said you're expendable, Jolly.
No,
Well-
I didn't say that.
I control it from my flying.
Absolutely not.
But I did notice that I saw some Mad Dogs in that fight. I literally saw some missiles come off target and veer out and track and hit one of our fighters from a friendly source.
Do we know what kind of missile that was?
I do not, but I visually
We do. It was a size 9 torpedo.
Okay, there you go.
From a retaliator. And last night we did some testing, and you can veer a size 9 off course. Believe it or not, the best way to do it is to have a small ship by a big ship and cork off the countermeasures from the small ship. That almost 90% of the time pulled the torpedo away from its intended course.
Interesting.
But it could go the other way too, and that's and I remember seeing decoys, the little sparklies that were going off were nearby when I saw this happen. So
Yeah.
It's it definitely is something. If you're flying in large groups and you're tossing a lot of missiles out, and Turing probably has done thorough testing, so maybe we'll toss it over to him to get a little recap on that. But you definitely have to be careful about Mad Dogs, and you need to call them, or so that people can deploy countermeasures if they're in the area.
Hey
Turing,
Jay, for those of us that aren't NADI viewers, what is a Mad Dog, Jay?
Well, in the military or in the Air Force, a Mad Dog is a missile that has lost tracking on its original target and is in seek mode. Therefore, it is dangerous to any plane in the general vicinity of said missile because it may lock onto you and destroy you.
Giving off the same signature it needs to seek.
Because those are particularly dangerous if they're heat seeking, because they don't discriminate at all.
Nope.
Well, EM or radar guided missiles are actually, because they have a lot more range in them.
Well, right.
And they have so both are dangerous.
This is still a game, though. We don't know how these are supposed to be cross section, the torpedoes, but we don't know how CIG actually has them acquire their target. It may not matter that it's a cross section.
Yeah, but you can equip EM and IR torpedoes as well. So
correct.
We suspect that some of those people did not have cross section torpedoes. The one that actually went sideways was an IR torpedo. That's the one that tend to be pulled off course.
And I will tell you, in the early 3.0 branches, 3.x branches, when we were doing combat missions, that we saw a number of IR missiles lose target due to flares, and then reacquire on other fighters.
Like Rattler missiles that are spewing them everywhere.
Correct. The IR ones in particular is we saw before, and it sounds like during that match is what you have seen in your testing. The IRs are susceptible to it in some cases.
Yeah, that's what we were looking at. Yes.
Yep. I'd be curious to see if EMs also are susceptible or not.
If we had targeting pods, that probably would be a problem.
Right, Josh?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said if we had targeting pods and you could lace things, that probably wouldn't be a problem.
Yes.
Yeah, really.
Not everything is about a targeting pod, though, but I do want one.
Really, the results are, we just don't really know at the moment, how effective countermeasures are or how effective they are at throwing things off. The best thing you can do is if you're in a formation and somebody's shooting missiles, continue to call out the fact that you've done that and watch out. They are pretty consistent showing up in the radar, though. I mean, you can see where the missile is, and if it begins to turn back, then deploy your own countermeasures and get away.
I did believe as a spectator, I think I actually saw the Idris shoot down some torpedoes as well.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it did do that,
which was very neat to see.
So, okay, let's move on to the next. That was a long segment, guys, 40 minutes. Wow. But it was that mission was excellent for all the members of ADI that are watching. It was great, and we really appreciate you participating. Anybody have any last thoughts before I move on to segment number 2? Going once, going twice. Okay, on to segment number 2. Formation flying. Josh, this is, as you and I call it, herding cats. This is your segment, so go ahead and talk to us about formation flying and why it's important in Star Citizen.
Absolutely, and I think in some ways we've just touched on a few of these basics, and it is herding cats because a lot of people in Star Citizen right now play a lot as individuals. I know for us, we've been trying to work more as a group, and to do that, you've got to be able to understand a few things. Now, we have some really good team leads in our division that are, putting in some serious time. And I sat down with them and we discussed, what are they seeing? What is happening? And so I want to bring this out so we can talk about some of those challenges. And the first thing, is why should we train and work together? And I know personally from some of the org ops I've done, deconfliction or not crashing into each other to your own friendly guys is certainly an inherent risk. And so this will help with not doing that. I don't know if in the operation we had any issues with that, but certainly making sure that you're only killing the bad guys and not crashing each other is a big part of working together. We're more functional in group operations is one of the things that I know is a big goal of our group, making sure that regardless of whether you're putting in a cap or CAS, that you're able to do that in a competent way. Another big one is communication and the use of brevity, which I consider to be almost like a language in that if you don't practice it, you won't use it right. And we'll see that as we go through some of the things that they see common with new pilots and returning pilots with the use of that. Improved flight precision. We're finding that people who go through this are seeing better precision in their flying and understanding, not just learning the muscle memory, but understanding why that's important. It also forces you to learn more of the ship systems. You may not use all of the systems when you're on your own, but we're seeing more use of that. It gives you a chance to know your friends, or in our case, org mates, which we all want to work with. And it looks cool, right? When you're flying together, it looks like you're organized, and we've gotten noticed doing that a few times. But to be specific, the notes that we got from some of our instructors is that basically the move, shoot, and communicate is the glue. And if one of those fails, then we start to struggle. And in particular, where new pilots fail in the move, shoot, communicate, in number one is speed control or speed changes. So in a flying formation, as you're moving around, you have different speeds that you need to go based on the movements you're doing. So an inside ship, if you're making like a left-hand turn, that ship to the left of lead has to actually slow down a little bit because their arc is smaller. So things like that are not very precise or comfortable for new pilots. Staying in position in general, just with, not major movements, but little movements even, has been a real challenge for new pilots. But even more so is understanding simple systems and how to use them, like decoupling. We've had some issues where people didn't understand how to use their systems or what decoupling even did to some extent. So knowing and understanding the game at a basic level. Again, back to communication. In this issue, we had non-use of brevity and then talking about things that aren't really relevant to the mission and just overloading the comms channels, which we already have enough issues with anyways, trying to communicate what is important. And then finally, new pilots are struggling a lot with key bindings. So not having their HOTAS set up, not knowing what keys to use on their keyboard and mouse. So, trying to take these challenges on and reduce those when we do these large orgs ops and these different missions is the goal of this group. And what they found is in the first training that we go through with pilots, we see a significant improvement in staying in position for formations. Proper spacing is significantly improved, and coordinated turns with formation changes and the necessary speed controls are a lot more precise, and people, again, getting that time in. This is a skill set that's perishable, and you have to spend time doing it, and you have to keep doing it. Otherwise, it goes away. The communications and brevity and over-talking went down significantly, and understanding the flight lead's brevity, so what they're trying to get you to do and what they're communicating. So in just one approximately 90-minute session, we've gone from where we've had some basic issues in understanding their ships, how to communicate, how to be in the right position, to getting them to be able to be a little more functional, a little bit better at communicating, and a little bit more useful in terms of working as a group. What I thought was even more interesting was in the second time, because we've had a lot of repeat people come through the session, we see faster rejoins. So when you separate due to combat or whatever, getting back in position with that speed control, and having more precise flying. So a lot less time trying to worry about getting back together and staying on task and performing the mission. That was also extended to communications were even more precise and people were more familiar. So what I think also was important is key bindings and using the ship systems. So again, those three phases, the move, shoot, and communicate, improved with even more training. So because this is a perishable skill, because it requires continuous practice, and I guess what I call the ability to take on more tasks. So when you're flying and just trying to fly, it's it can be a pretty basic process. When you start adding other people in and now coordinated responses to threats, each layer becomes more difficult. And the more you practice it, the more each one of those layers becomes a skill that you have automatically and are not struggling through, so you can become more functional as a group. So before we go into the last part of this, I guess I'll ask for the people who were involved in the org op, did you see any of these? And if so, to kind of what extent?
Well, and I think that was a mouthful. I had hoped that you would take breaks along in there so that we could talk about each section.
Did he even breathe? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to discuss it, I mean, largely, in my experience, you need 20 to 40 hours of just practicing flying, not combat, not anything else, just flying, to master the muscle memory necessary to fly the craft or fly craft in a specific game. And all of them in this case are pretty unique. Some of the light fighters are really similar, but generally speaking, you're going to have to spend some time on it. And that's my experience. And, so formation flying is not meant to look cool. It's meant to teach. It's a really simple way to practice that muscle memory of, I have an eyeball on a target, and now I need to match speed and course with that target in turns and simple. If I can't do that, how on earth am I going to approach somebody and try to stay on them in a dogfight? Jolly, what are your thoughts on that?
Josh and I have talked about this a little bit. When it comes to formation flying, part of the box flying, the training we're trying to do, you want to stay within 300 meters, at least 300 meters or more or closer if you can. That's training. That's a skill training you were trying to get done, which is good. But tactically, you want to separate out, not giving up on each other. It's not a matter of I'm going to the left, you go right, but let's get some space here. So number two has some play space. I can still cover you from a click out easily. And that's the way so you need to understand there's a training to build up skill And then you take that skill, it's a lot easier to maintain my place off my lead at a click than it is at 250, 300 meters out. So if I get this down, I get that down, no problem.
But with skill and practice, you can have that additional separation and still be more functional.
Yep.
So
Well,
go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jolly. I mean, you teach close up, but practically when you go into combat, you push out 500 or meters or a kilometer. Yeah, and get into a support position, and you probably follow and trail a little bit more. Turing, what are your thoughts?
I would say that you need to build. This is a skill that you build up, just like we were talking about. You start off at a rudimentary level, build that muscle memory with the close-in flying. That was very helpful to me when I was going through and learning at the very beginning, getting into the organization and being able to follow. You have to be able to watch and still at the same time maintain your situational awareness around. One of the problems that I have is you become target saturated. You target focus and you forget what's happening around you, and you forget to be able to look and see those. I like when Jolly said that, teaching in close in is one thing, but actual practical, you're gonna have that separation. You're gonna have those. We're going to be building, hopefully, in the future, building those types of training opportunities as well. We need to start, looking at bringing those and actually giving a goal for people to achieve to include fight against real people and to be able to handle that. I'm not a combat pilot, despite what everybody keeps telling me. I am not a combat pilot. But I have learned quite a bit in just trying to take in the fundamentals that are being taught in these formation flying sessions, and I'm a much better pilot than I was when I first started.
Yep. I will say that I call it the situational awareness bucket. You start off with a little teacup, and as you get more and more comfortable, your situational awareness bucket grows and grows and grows. Becomes more elastic to deal with more complicated situations. Nam, what's your thoughts on this? Coming from, you've been with us for years at this point.
Well, I will say this. When I came into this in 2015, I'm a bit more of a layman. My flight experience was wing commander. So it was pretty basic by comparison. I very much agree with, I started, going from keyboard and mouse to having more controls, up to having track R and everything. It doesn't matter what tools you have. It's a matter of getting comfortable with it and muscle memory, what that really means. And what it really means is you make the movement without having to think, okay, left on that on the D-pad does this. You don't have to actually think about the control. You say, I need to lock on target, and your thumb moves and hits it.
So you can think about what you're doing and not how to do it.
So you can keep that situational awareness that Turin's talking about. You don't get tunnel visioned, and it just comes with time. You got to spend the hours playing the game, flying, learning your controls, and figuring out what control scheme works, and don't be constantly changing things, because otherwise you're not going to get that muscle memory.
Yeah, what's happened to me is on some of the ships that I fly, the light fighters, the Arrow, the Hornet, I was even in a Tana last night. I've gotten to the point where I can almost feel how fast I'm going in relation to the other ships. And so when I was being able to pull in close with the formation, I'm not even really checking my speed meter anymore. I'm working the throttle in those minute changes that you do, which is why it's so important to have that HOTAS setup. You cannot do this, I believe, effectively with a keyboard. I know there's people out there that can do it. They've been practicing, and that's great. It would not work for me, but you can almost feel how fast you're going in relation to the rest of the folks. Now, if I can just get it so that I'm not like swinging wide when everybody makes a turn, then we're good. That will come with time. But
well, you're not using track IR, are you?
I am not. So
that hurts you then having
It
the
definitely helps your situational awareness
Yes.
a lot.
Yeah.
Although I would say, that or Toby, one of the two. at
well,
this
sure,
point.
some kind of head tracking, eye tracking.
And not
Something.
the webcam. Webcam
Yeah,
is
the
junk.
what's it called?
FOIP.
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 I've never
Face,
even
faceware.
It's faceware. Yeah, it's not reliable at all for that. It's a pain to use. I tried it. No.
And on this channel on YouTube, Jaglin, who is our producer and my beautiful bride, has a video. Has a video
And no lights.
of yeah, well, she doesn't want to be on camera normally. But she has video showing how wonderful faceware tracking is with a fairly decent webcam. $100 webcam today.
I got that exact same camera she was using there. Same result. Yeah.
Yep. It's, it was fun. Shepcap, before we go to questions from folks, do you have any comments on this?
No, the only thing, I unfortunately I haven't done a lot of in-game flight training with folks, but what I can say has helped me immensely is just learning the brevity. It cuts down on the chatter so much, and it just makes everything move so much smoother. Like as a spectator for the event, the Xeno event, hearing what we heard just through your chat, Jay, everything was concise. The people giving the message gave the data they needed. The person receiving knew what they were saying, and it just moved on. It wasn't plain speak where you had to, sift through the nonsense. It was like, such and such is doing this, such and such is this, such and such is this. It was just easy to go. So, for me to learn it, I literally printed it out and had it next to my computer when I was running back when we used to do like Friday night flight nights. I literally had it sitting there next to me. So I would look up real quick whatever it was I was about to say if I wasn't saying it all the time, and just kind of drilled it in that way. So brevity's huge. Being able to fly really well is great too, but being able to communicate's, I would almost say a little more important.
Well, that's all part of the teamwork.
Sure.
Wazzle Prime, and I'm sure that I am messing that up horribly, is asking us to talk about the practicality of using pin target. Jolly, what are your thoughts on that to help with this? And I've got my own.
One time I've used pin was single fighter, because I want to keep track of certain targets at a distance. Real simple to use. Crosshairs 1, crosshairs 2, crosshairs 3 as necessary. Go to the nearest fighter and engage it. It's more useful when it comes to a crew-served weapon we found with the hammerheads in terms of crosshairs 1, everybody sees their turret, focus that target, please. Hopefully get the right target if they move on to crosshairs 2, or the pin target number 2, whatever the case may be. But it's a plus overall. It's real easy to use. It's not a problem.
It's also helpful to use it to pin your flight lead if you need to, so you have a constant reference.
Flight lead or wingman. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only thing we're looking at right now with that though is we want to make sure that once you pin the person, you don't continue to lock up their radar and give them a false radar, paint, and that way they won't know if they actually get painted by an enemy radar. So I think there's a way to pin and not lock.
If you pin it and unlock it, I believe you achieve that. You get the arrow and direction, but you don't light up their radar lock.
You won't if you turn off the lock though. You don't get the name, you don't get the direction, you don't get the distance. All you get is the arrow relative to where you are. But it's still better than nothing if you're trying to pin your wingman or you pin your flight lead to see where they're going.
Yep. The problem there is sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just saying is
in a benign environment, if I lock my lead and say, lead, I've locked you, then he knows it's the case. Just as I'm trying to find you. But keeping that situation is usually not a good idea.
Big negative on locking, though, is we're limited to so many pins.
Yeah.
And you're wasting one of your pins you could use on an enemy on a friendly.
Well, also, he gets a radar lock notification, right?
If you lock them, that's what we're trying to test. You can pin without locking. But just like what Nimidia said, you lose one of your your pin channel, your pins for it. So
more importantly, you should be able to visually. I mean, it's one thing to need distance readings when you're 10 kilometers out from a target. When you get within 1,500 meters or so, and you could start visually seeing the orientation of the craft that you're approaching, you shouldn't need a pen. You shouldn't need distance or speed updates or anything like that. You should at that point just be able to visually
Pinning to me, pinning will become very useful if I'm able to pin a static location. For example, if I am trying to find fly cast or cap around a fixed point, if I got a bone around a fixed point, if I'm able to pin that point, that's very helpful.
Sure.
That's extremely helpful. I agree for training purposes, being able to pin your flight lead and stuff like that in order to not lose them or something, that's true. But if you're we have party pips right now too that offer that ability for you to see distance and things of that nature. I'm not really concerned about the pinning of your friendlies. We have the ability to cycle through friendlies right now and untarget real quick. But being able to pin a fixed point and then being able to pin and pass that pin from a command and control standpoint to the rest of your formation or rest of your package. When those two things become active in the game, pinning will then become something that we definitely want to start teaching.
Yes. So now let's move into the last little bit of this, which is control differences. Josh, I know I cut you off right before that segment.
No, you're good.
So,
feel free to interrupt me if I just keep talking like a machine at any time.
Well, this is the last part before we move on to the next segment. So,
yeah. So in talking to, again, the people that are trying to teach this, I wanted to understand because, I've been on here and I've spent a significant amount of time talking about HOTASes and making my profiles and whatnot. But I wanted to understand from their perspective what differences they see. And right away, keyboard and mouse users have to use cruise control. They're saying from their testing that the increments of a mouse wheel are about 20 meters per second. And if you've never calculated it, 20 meters per second is about 45 miles an hour and almost 71 kilometers per hour. That's a very significant difference when you're trying to stay in position or hold speed or whatnot. So for mouse and keyboard users, they believe it's very, very important to have to use cruise control. Moving on to a throttle axis, they're seeing a lot more precision, control over speed, and the accurate micro speed adjustment. So not just the speed of the adjustment, because you can do a real fast speed adjustment with a mouse wheel, but the micro speed adjustment to stay in position and do the precise flying that you want to do. So there's a very significant improvement from just using a throttle axis. Also on a joystick or HOTAS, the availability and quick use of buttons seems to make it a little easier for the average pilot to fly. Now, again, if we're talking about a bell curve, we as a large org or any group wants to make something that works for the majority of people. There's going to be outliers that can do all kinds of stuff. And finally, and this is a topic that I had actually recently looked into for a different purpose, but the gamepads seem to produce pretty poor results because people are not using the cruise control correctly or the speed limiter correctly. Now, to do this, and as Jacqueline has put up here, on the top left bumper where it says M1, you have to press it, and it's a modified state to use both the speed limiter and the cruise control. So it's not an immediately available option. And if you haven't studied this graph, which making my profiles and looking at the different systems, modified states, and the different modes, so like a mining mode or whatnot, or the scanning mode, they have really done a good job to cram a lot of things onto the gamepad, but it's really busy and it's hard to use. You can't roll left and pull back on the stick at the same time for flight orientation because one of those is a modified state of the other. So the gamepad is not showing to be thus far, at least for your average pilot, something that's good to use. I'm assuming there's someone out there who's going to kill all of us in a gamepad someday. So I'm not saying that it's going to stop someone, but for the average things we're seeing, it's not that good. Now, in a different episode, I did talk about a gamepad being great for ground vehicles, and I love it for that. But overall, we're seeing the best performance with people using a throttle axis and a HOTAS. And that, I think, just goes to the fact that the average pilot has an easier time using those particular inputs.
Less pilot fatiguing for sure.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I've flown with gamepads, and if you're doing milk runs, i.e. cargo runs, or you're just driving between two or flying between two sites, or you're doing mining, the gamepad's okay. It's probably better than mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
Good for cinematography too.
Yep, good for cinematography. Yep, definitely agree with that. But combat flight, I don't think I could do it, even with the Steam controller that I have, which is pretty high end. And mine didn't have modify. I could roll pitch and yaw without having to modify anything on the Steam controller. So, Jolly, what are your thoughts on controllers and being able to fly smaller ships?
The only thing I'd bring up is the mice. Most mice do have mouses do have the click you talked about, Josh. Dixon and I were talking about there are mice out there that are smooth roll or have the option for a smooth roll. Now we were talking in terms of mining is what we were looking at in terms of controlling.
So the mining laser power,
mining laser, exactly. Nice smooth control on that. So those are out there. So if you are flying keyboard or keypad and mouse, see if you can find one of those to help more precisely move your speed on your ship.
I'll give you a hint. Most mice have a button that turns the mouse wheel into smooth.
Most do, not all.
Yeah, correct.
Right, but the resistance on that isn't super
there's no resistance on it.
Right,
so it would be very difficult.
It freaks me
to
out.
get...
I don't like it.
And there might be some software adjustment as well. You might be able to do in Windows to adjust it a bit.
You'd have to do quite a bit of adjustment because it's I don't know that you could do that. I fiddled with it once and it did not work getting to change that, even if you go in and tell it, only scroll one line at a time instead of 3, which is a Windows setting. It didn't have any impact on the game.
I had a question for Josh regarding the 20 meters per second click deal. Now, does that stay constant, or when you run up the logarithmic scale that is your throttle for some reason, does that 20 turn into 400 all of a sudden? Or
no,
you know what I mean.
Constant.
I know you can't go 400 per click, but
from what I understand, it's relatively consistent.
Okay.
Yep.
But again, that's a huge swing.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's impossible to fly with somebody.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, everything we're talking about is all of the little pieces you have to master as one person to work as a group. So being able to fly and control your ship, being able to use the systems and weapons, being able to communicate properly. And if your hardware is getting in the way, it's just getting in the way and it's going to break that chain and things begin to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
So Prime is also saying using default Star Citizen gamepad settings and can do what JC was saying. They may have changed that. I'm not sure. We were showing.
Using.
Oh, not using.
You can if you rebind, you can.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yes, if you rebind, you can get it to do, but you lose a lot of functionality if you rebind.
You do because you don't have the modifiers, the modes, none of that stuff.
Correct. So there's pluses and minuses to that. If you're using the Steam controller, you can do modifiers and stuff in the Steam software, but like an Xbox controller plugged in, you don't have that functionality unless you get into a very esoteric VDroid mapper situation, which is, outside the scope for most people. So moving on, Nom. 3.13.
You didn't say it. Tonk. Okay, we're getting a tonk on this one, apparently.
Tonk? What's wrong with the tonk?
Well, hey, CIG has already officially said tonk in some of their postings, so it's official now.
No, it's become a thing. It's real.
Yeah.
It was a meme, and now it's real.
Yep.
What is the tonk? Oh, the tank.
The tank.
Is
The
coming.
Nova
Tank.
tank.
Okay.
Anyway,
Sorry.
So 3.3 is due out end of March, Q1. There's no announcement yet on any PTU cycle yet, but I'm sure we'll see something in a week or two, based off of previous history. Everybody cares about what ships are coming, so we got 3 things coming. The Tumbrel Nova, how useful that's going to be, that's a question. How often do you see a ballista in use in the game right now? It's the vehicles. It's going to be. I don't think these are really going to matter that much until you start seeing the outposts that NPCs and players can occupy.
I would say that you could, if they can shoot out bunker turrets on the ground, you might have a use for them right off the bat.
Got to get them there.
Yeah, got to get them.
Well, isn't the Hercules also coming out?
That's what I was going to get to next.
Okay.
Joni, can you put up a? Yeah, there we go. So we got two of the Hercules are coming out. The military transport and the civilian transport. The difference between them is the military transport has one more remote turret. That's the nose turret, and it's supposed to have more armor. What heavy armor and what medium armor means, only CIG knows. The civilian transport holds like what is it, like 160 some more SCU than the military one. So 624 SCU versus 468. But they, other than that, in that graphic you can see they got the same internal space for hauling 2 tanks and more of the other vehicles. So I'm looking forward to this one. That's far as other highlights coming in 3.3, we got the only thing that's been actually committed to 3.13 is the Merlin constellation docking. Everything else is still tentative. But
let's talk about that for a second, because
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us have seen that video, right? Anybody have
Yes.
not seen that video?
I haven't. I don't know if it's a recent one.
It's
Yeah,
a couple
week
weeks
ago.
old.
Yeah, I don't think I did.
So I'm going to be honest. I think that the parasitic docking was a waste of time. I think they would have been better to just re-engineer the one ship in the game that has it and convert that back area into a very tiny fly-in hangar and just call it a day.
I can see the argument, but I can also see they made a commitment to that many years ago, and there are people who would lose their minds if they don't get their parasitic docking Merlin.
The pitchforks would come out.
They would.
The parasitic stuff I think was just but hey, it looks like they got it. It looks like if you use it in combat, you're going to die if you're in the mothership. But otherwise,
if
it
you
looks
fly
great.
away from your ship, you're going to lose your mothership because the ship goes away. So,
but it does show they've at least if this works, that's a major step forward in physics grid interactions, which is something that's been a big point of contention in this game. And with that is going to come, maybe we'll finally not stop dead in space, which is the stupidest thing when you jump out of a ship. Maybe they got the physics down a little better than that.
Or elevators. Maybe they get elevators to work.
Maybe the elevators will start working. There's so many knock-on effects here if they got in progress with the physics grids interacting that way.
I can't tell you how many ground vehicles I've destroyed trying to get them up into an 890.
And
or Connie.
Yeah.
And this will also have implications for auto landing, requesting landing on auto landing ships inside of a 890 jump hangar bay, any number of ships, even landing a Dragonfly in the back. Remember when we first got the Cutlass in game, and they showed where the Dragonfly I think it was the Dragonfly would come in and lock down and land. They had 2 lock points on the deck.
The Dragonfly are still there.
Right, they're still there.
Yeah.
And you could even use the auto land to lock yourself in, but they took it away because there was a lot of work yet to be done. Maybe we'll finally get that back some point in the future here, which will make vehicles a bit more. There's so many knock-on effects there. It comes with spawning your ships in, having spawning your ships with the vehicles already in them. There's so much connected to that.
Well, that's
that would be very nice.
Yeah, this is the first iteration of that.
It would save so much time.
But technically, that doesn't require parasitic docking. All the things that you just said that would be great to have did not require parasitic docking.
But it was a good experiment, I think.
I'm just saying you could have done all that work and gotten all those features that you just described and not done parasitic docking and would have saved at least half the programming.
Well,
hopefully
they'll use that for the whole series stuff. I mean, the whole physics grid thing is not wasted in my mind.
Well, how? How is a Hull C similar to Archimedes
No, I
docking
mean,
to economy.
He's talking about
bringing
just
two
advanced
bodies
physics.
together where the physics grids then begin to interact is what.
And
is
they
what
don't
one of the
kill
main-
each other.
Yeah.
Well, but you have
because
to.
otherwise it's just straight programming to bring that ship up in there. I mean, that shouldn't be hard. I mean, to do.
Well,
It was the whole idea that it would pass off its characteristics, its physics grid character, and it would merge with the other one and then become a new one and move on.
Mhm.
That was the problem. That was the piece of it, because once they figured that out, they got the parasitic thing to work pretty quick.
no,
Now connected to
I
all
suspect
this,
that's not the case, but okay.
connected to all this is ship to station docking. That's coming in. First iteration of that's coming in 3.13, at least we hope.
Knock on wood.
But if the Merlin's in, I'm hoping that they looked like they showed a lot of. They still needed some work, but it looked like it was there, at least basic functionality. They said in a previous video, either sometime this week or last week, that we're getting the Hammerhead and the 890 Jump will be the first ships able to dock with a station, which is, I think, big for the 890 Jump owners. We'll finally start seeing more of those in game, because up till now, the only places you could spawn those is the cities and Grimhex. So that'll be big for them. And
I agree. It would be very nice to be able to pull a Hammerhead up and spawn it on a dock instead of having to try to
Ram the
coax it
elevators.
out.
Yeah.
Of the
Coax it out of
hangar
this
and hit the-
hangar
hit
that
the
it
edges.
barely fits through.
Yeah.
Nobody get in your guns. If you get in your guns, we can't get out of the
Yeah,
hangar.
we all die. Yeah. Somebody brought this up offline too, about using that Merlin docking point as a way to like drop Space Marines out.
I think that was me.
While you're underway.
I don't know. The visual of that just does not look good.
Like if you want to board an enemy ship, could you coast by real slow and throw out some dudes?
Yeah, they all go straight into the ground and little tombstones pop up right after.
I'm not volunteering for that one.
No.
I'm sure we could find some volunteers.
Yes.
But I think the ship to station docking, because that also means the whole sea's pretty soon after.
Well, the whole sea's done, right? I mean, it's been done for over a year. It's just they couldn't figure out how to make the thing go and back.
It's got to
right?
expand and contract. The volume space changes, which was the big problem.
Correct.
Yeah. And the hitbox and the shield
Well,
box and everything else.
and they needed docking.
Well, yeah, because you can't really land the thing, can you?
No.
Loaded.
Yeah. So.
And I don't think we even see the hull C on the roadmap. Further down the road, the hull A and B are on there, but they haven't even flagged the C on there yet.
I could have swore that
they said C was first.
I could have sworn that it was complete. And, the only reason we don't have it is because number one, Squadron, and number two, they couldn't get the spindly arm things to work right.
Okay. All right.
And it may be one of those things that we don't see until Squadron. Because I've seen in-game renders of it, I swear. I thought on a video, they teased white box and gray box of it.
Yeah.
Which, I don't think they would have gone that far and then shelved it.
I do know the A and the B are on the roadmap, so I'm not sure where that's going.
Well, I could say this: if they got it where, because the docking arms are volume changing as well when they push out, they're changing volumes. So if they have accomplished that, that means they should be able to push out the whole C. If they and I thought they said that was going to be the first iteration in game was the whole C, and then they were going to work on the A, B, D, and E after that.
Rumor mill's working overtime.
As far as cave entrances, we're getting expansions on caves to where you can drive into them.
Yay.
And also ones you can fly a ship into. It's going to be fun to see what people do, what they try to fit into these things. Because Star Citizen backers are all about what fits in what, and you know what's going to happen. We'll see an 890 jump jammed into a hole in the ground.
What'll be fun is when the physics collision happens and it pops up out of the ground in the middle of a planet somewhere. That'll be the fun part.
So that'll be fun. I don't know what all we'll be doing there unless they expand the activities there. It's more just going to be doing it to do it. Hopefully they'll have more to mine or whatever.
NPCs, perhaps?
Get a rock down there?
I think they're going to put
there have been a couple of caves in the past where they had NPCs down there you had to kill. But they're that was very rare. Once I did.
Once.
When?
Yeah.
I know
there was a
time.
period of time. Yeah.
There was?
There,
One time
on
I know.
occasion, you'd come to a cave and there would be NPCs there who would shoot at you.
Oh, at the
Outside the
entrance.
cave, or
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
deep down in there too.
Yeah.
Really?
Remember that cave
I
that had the
never
ghost
saw
in it?
deep down in there.
You had to go hunt the ghost.
No, but Lacoste members that would.
Oh yeah,
pretty well.
Lacoste.
Hey,
Lacoste is
Lacoste.
on watching the show right now, and he's probably having flashbacks to. That wasn't an NPC though. That was a very bored CIG
Yeah,
employee.
we did have a fire team get swacked, about half swacked on a mining mission that we did. That there was NPCs that happened to spawn there. That was when they first started doing it. Yeah.
Yep. But that's been a long time that they've had that out.
Oh yeah, it's been. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to the cave for the first time and literally jumping at every sound with my gun out. Like, is that a bad guy? No, it's a rock. Is that a bad guy? No, it's a rock.
Yep. It's going to happen again when we get
Ready to hose down the whole cave.
The very first time I went into a cave was with Lacoste, and oh yeah, he's a chat.
Game over. Game over, man.
Flashbacks.
Game
Yeah,
over.
he's getting flashbacks, but
Did you hear that?
I'm sorry.
Did you hear
but yeah, there was, and it's like, nah, we're fine, just keep going.
Yeah, and Jay, I think the second time you went was when they still had the grenade problem, and somebody dropped a grenade at y'all's guys' feet. So
Frost Zone killed
Yeah.
me with a grenade.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've not been
can't
having
run in caves.
can't run in caves. That's been a little bit of an issue. Okay, go on. What's next? Nom?
New asteroids. Basically, there's creating. The way they put it is it's kind of vague. Creating replacements for the asteroids currently in the Stanton system using the new organic asset workflow. Now that's Greek to me. I'm not a programmer, or not a dev, but I'm hoping that means that's another step towards the new era in Halo they've talked about. How it's going to be a totally different environment. Hopefully that means more varied asteroids for us to mine because there's not a lot of difference in size in those things. Whereas on moon and planet surfaces, you get a much greater variety of rocks, some that are small and some that are way too big for a prospector to possibly break. The next thing is, and this is going to be a big one, is vehicle names and serial numbers. There's
Shippy
a lot of
ship?
questions on this one.
Bodie McBoatface.
Yeah. They had an FAQ on this where they said, like for a particular name, for a particular model, only one person can have that name. But if they claim it
per frame,
per airframe. If they claim it, the name is free again. So what are they how is this being handled if you have a really cool name, are people just going to be hunting you down and killing you so they can snipe your name when you claim it? I mean, there's so many little knock-on effects here they're going to have to figure out. Is there going to be?
So you're saying if you
down?
claim your ship, you lose the name.
Yes.
So you're risking your name.
Wait, are you sure they didn't mean melt the ship?
They
versus
said
claim the ship.
They said claim the ship. It would be. If somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what they. But there has to be a cooldown or something there, because otherwise, having a nice name, it's just going to be an invitation to whack you wherever you go.
Yeah, I think that's got to be. I think they mean if you melt the ship.
Look,
that's what they said. They said claim. They used that specific word. I wish I could find the FAQ right now.
I'm trying to look through it right now.
At the end of the day, it's not the first time that CIG has come up with a horribly bad idea.
And
they
can retcon any of it. They can say, "Oh, we didn't mean that," and they'll move on. So
hopefully they figure this one out before they actually implement it like that.
And the only thing I got to say to people is right now, if you got a really cool name you're planning, don't tell everybody, because it's going to get taken.
It's going to get taken, yes.
And
I'll sell it to you.
Huh?
I'll sell it to you.
I think you're going to see that. I really do. I think somebody's going to get Millennium Falcon, for the Corsair, and you're going to see it on eBay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's exactly what's going to happen. Is you're going to see names on eBay for $5 or $10 or 100
million auctions. You'll see auctions for names.
Yep. Lost System 2.0 or version 2. No, what about that?
Bodie McBoatface. Yeah. Like somebody. Yeah. Shippy McShipface. Thais posted in the chat.
It's Shippy McShippington.
Yeah.
Sir. The third.
My ship. to my ship.
The
My
other
ship.
thing, the other bit is Law System V2. They're adding surrender. Now they tried to introduce that before and they pulled it back. I guess they still have more work to do, but they're going to try again. I'm sure that'll be pretty cut and dry when it comes to NPCs. They'll either surrender or they won't. But how that's going to work with players and when you have other players in your ship and all that, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. They have a basic description that says, allow people to be arrested without losing their life. They will be able to surrender by coming to a halt and powering down their ships when ordered by security. Same thing you do when you get interdicted. Security will halt their attack and arrest criminal players. I assume they're just going to, for now anyway, they're just going to be magically popped out of your ship and they'll wake up in prison. And impound the ship if it's owned by a criminal. So I guess that means if you're a good guy and you have a stowaway with a criminal record and you get scanned, that's the question. You stopped your ship, but he didn't surrender. But he's on board your ship that you stopped and you agreed to stop. Did you just surrender that guy even though he wasn't doing it voluntarily?
He gets hoovered off your ship.
Yeah,
Come over.
Yeah, the maneuver is called "sold up the river."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you get half the bounty.
Yep.
Yeah, that will be bad. If
Oh,
that
that's
happens.
dark.
I can see the honey, not honeypot, but I can see the hey, I'm offering rides to Grimhex.
I was going to say, can you see the quantum beacon? The quantum beacons now.
Yeah.
No, see, this is a new kind of announcement for a pilot. Dear passengers, we know that you have a criminal stat. We are headed to an area that's not good for you, and if you pay me enough money, we will continue on our journey. Otherwise, you'll have to surrender. You could auction it off right there live.
They need to add the ability to lock the cockpit door before that happens.
Doc Hollywood has a good question. He says, what
Yep.
if you're innocent on a ship owned by a baddie? They're going to impound the ship. It'll probably be the same as if you're not, I don't think you're necessarily going to die, but you're probably going to wake up at whatever last spawn point you were at. You'll wake up in the hab, you'll stand
Just
up.
float in space.
Yeah.
Just leave
Hopefully,
you.
I'm hoping that's what's going to happen. If they do impound the ship, everyone who's a criminal goes to prison. Everyone who's not goes back to their last spawn point. That's what I imagine would be at least the first pass on this.
Yeah, and unless they invoke guilt by association rule. So.
And that's how
Hey.
it was in the past. We do some training, and sure enough, offloading and unloading a ship, and somebody crashes and burns, they die. The pilot gets a crime stat. The rest of us passengers, we didn't. So that's probably we keep the same type of approach to it.
Yeah, well, that does beg the other question: is what happens right now is if you get scanned and you have a criminal on board, the pilot gets charged for harboring a fugitive.
But
So,
in my example,
are they gonna unroll that when they do this?
Probably not.
Well,
So
I mean,
basically,
it's kind of your
if it's not
responsibility.
allowed-
I mean, they're on your ship.
They'll give you a chance to
You let them on.
Well, hey, you're a criminal now, so okay.
You're going to jail too.
We gotta get our quota. Hit our quota this month.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing is object push and pull. That's basically being able to actually, instead of using the tractor beam, being able to physically grab objects, move them around. They have shown pictures and what all of cargo skids, essentially, that you can grab by the hand and move around, like anti-grab skids. So maybe at some point that'll have a knock-on for that. But there's really not much there to know how useful that's going to be. But they mentioned that, but they didn't mention another one they had where you're able to grab onto things in 0G and pull yourself along a hull without using EVA jets. But I'm sure there's a connection there somehow. But that's the things I thought really stood out as being noteworthy on this patch. And obviously not everything's, almost never do we see everything make the cutoff for the quarter. Something's bound to get bumped between now and then. A lot of little things. There's some polish happening to the refinery stations, to the Stanton system in general as they get the final stuff in. A lot of little things probably not worth mentioning here right now because they may or may not matter for the near future.
Well, there is one big one.
Which one?
The missile guidance and control rework.
Okay. everybody has a different opinion. I wasn't really sure what that really means here.
I don't know either, but it says
You-
missile
if I-
improvements.
I could real quick. Glyan and I were talking in Discord, and he was pointing out that there's no IR missiles. That they're actually all what they call IRs, cross sections. It's possible that's a fix for that problem.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, I was looking at that too. That may explain some of the things that we were seeing last night too. I'm gonna pass it along to Scientifico to look at.
The way they got this, the card says convert missiles to use the IFC guidance and control systems. This will improve missile performance and tracking ability, enabling greater control over greater missile behaviors. Can you explain any of that to me, Josh?
No,
I thought that meant they were gonna have the missiles start using aerodynamic surfaces. You know, I mean, like
fins.
well,
yeah,
that would
I've
only
seen the
be an
pictures where the
atmosphere.
fins, they're looking at fins
They-
rotating
Yeah.
on them. Yeah.
You have to have an atmosphere to do that. So I don't know. I really don't have any idea what that means. But I read the word. This will improve missile performance, and I'm hoping that that's true.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
missile
the takeaway.
operator mode is another thing.
Like
It's like
fly by
missiles.
wire.
Missiles now be controlled under a dedicated missile operator mode, which gives players the option to select and fire specific missiles while operating in ships that allow for different types of missiles and torpedoes. Can't you already do that? Can't we
Yeah.
already select
We
missile
can
types?
Yeah.
we can select them, but maybe what
it's not
they're
very quick and clean though.
maybe what they're saying here is that it'll actually work.
Or your co-pilot. Or your co-pilot can do it.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I have
Good
no
shot.
clue what that means either. So
I guess operator mode does suggest it could be a co-pilot.
Yeah. Or, a guy in the chair in the mess hall with a laptop. And yeah, there he is.
Wearing a hoodie.
Done.
Space sniper.
Wow.
Got him.
All right.
Okay.
I think that's
Well,
pretty
that
much
gets
it
us
for the
through
road.
3.13, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, this was a long show. We're at an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I think
chance.
we're going to go ahead and skip the even more theory crafting of whether there will actually be a CitizenCon 2021. And if there is, what that will entail and, with COVID restrictions. And no, I am not showing that custom gator mask that you had on there.
Come on.
Oh my lord.
No.
Fandana.
But we'll look at CitizenCon 2021 when we get a little bit more information about it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical as well. I
Highly.
don't think.
Highly skeptical.
I think they're just keeping their place in line right now. It's like they're basically keeping their foot in the door there so that when it does get bumped, they're not waiting till 2022, 2023.
Yeah, optimistic
it done.
placeholder, I think, is what
Yep.
you're looking at.
I think it's very optimistic, and we'll just have to wait and see. I'm hopeful that things are somewhat back to normal by this summer, but I don't think that we're going to be back to large 3,000 person conventions by
Yeah,
then.
I agree, Jay. 100%.
So I
think
could be.
maybe a large virtual event.
You
maybe
would have thought
something
they'd have
more-
done that this year. I mean, they had the ability to do a large virtual event. and
They could have
didn't
done
do
it this year, but I think now that virtual events are becoming the norm, look at BlizzCon, for example. I
It's
think
still not the same.
Oh,
It's
no,
not-
it will never be the same. No, but I think you
they
can
suck.
still have a large scripted event that's got all the right aspects of a product launch. It won't be the same, of course, but I think you can still do something grandiose and have a nice presentation other than a Zoom call, and maybe pull something off.
I get what you're saying.
There's a
I
lot of
just-
people know that's kind of my area of expertise is AV setups, and it's becoming the norm. People start to realize that they can actually save a lot of money by not flying their entire company to Vegas for a conference.
But for a
but-
gaming convention, I'll be honest with you, we were all looking forward to flying out to LA.
Yep.
I mean, we had Airbnbs
plans.
picked out, and we had 40 people signed up to go, back before COVID hit.
Yeah,
We
I
even
think
had a
late
reservation.
November. I think late November might be a better time to try and do something. If I'm CIG, maybe still too soon, but I think August is just too close.
I
don't
think-
see it happening.
I think it's I don't think it's even aspirational. I think it's just keeping their name in the queue so they're
I
not
agree.
bumped back way too far.
Yeah, I think it's been rumor milled quite a bit. I think somebody got a little aggressive in looking at the schedule, and a fan noticed it, and then it's just grown horns from there. And I wouldn't give it much credence, honestly.
Yep. Until they announce.
Yeah,
officially
until
that
they
they're
make a
gonna do
statement
it.
one way or another.
Yeah, but I'm not
No.
not thinking that's gonna happen.
Nope.
Okay, let's go around the horn. Jolly, anything you'd like to add for this evening?
Yeah, good discussion. I hope to see more of the Xeno type missions in the future.
Definitely more Xenotype missions, CIG. Completely agree. Turing, any final thoughts?
Great discussion tonight. I like the way they're going with interacting within the lore and the story, and making it to the point where you feel as if you're stepping away from a video game and actually playing something that it has meaning.
Completely agree. Josh, anything you'd like to add?
I just agree with Turin. I like to have meaning. I want there to be context. That's why I like doing casts. I want to be able to help the guys on the ground and have some impact on something we're doing that has a greater purpose. So I'm looking forward to more of that.
Oh, I agree. Namidius, anything you'd like to add?
Nope, just pretty much the same thing. I think given this is the first real event we had, it went off really well, and I'm looking more of the same. It gives an investment into the whole thing to feel like you took part in something that's now history of the game. So, and then people a year later can say, "Oh, remember when?" And then it's just a good feeling, and that's pretty much all I got to say on that.
I agree. And Shap, anything from the nation's capital?
Yeah, Xeno Threat I think was great. I didn't get to participate, but it was very fun to watch the org shine. Again, the advantage of a big org is you can get shit done. It was great to watch the org shine when you guys streamed the phase 3. Great points on training. I think we got some fun things to look forward and talk about with 3.13. I
agree. 3.13. I'm going to tell you guys my personal impression. The big thing that I like about 3.12 and 3.13, hopefully, is we're back to where we can run large missions. And that's something I'm really looking forward to, is the ability, it's been since 3.5 when they really introduced these massive bugs that at least now we can run a 40-person or 50-person mission. And I think, Jolly, what do you think? You think we should probably do another 45, 50-person mission at some point?
I happily do one. I've run across 2 3 times 10,000s so far.
Yep.
In order for Elijah not to get mad at me. But stability's been pretty good overall.
They just need to fix that quantum bug. Trying to quantum in where a bunch of other people are from the F2 menu is a nightmare.
You can avoid that, but it requires a lot of control of your personnel.
Mm-hmm.
You really got to be an a-hole and tell them what the hell to do when to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, and the way you crafted it, Jolly, was the way you have to do it. You have to give specific distance points to bring the packages together and make sure that the spacings between those main packages are at the right spot. And then the folks that are there, they have to bring themselves in closer than you think.
Yep.
So if you do those things, I think we only had maybe 2 incidents where we had somebody behind, and that was mainly on a rearm where they went back separately and tried to quantum back, and they got caught in a party jump that they didn't want to be part of, and they just got left back there.
That happens.
Mm-hmm.
So March 20th. And everybody open to March 20th for the next HangarReady.
Our spring show.
I'm good.
Spring show.
I'll be back home. Hopefully I'll have a new studio by then.
Good.
Which means it'll be 90 degrees down here in sunny Florida.
Which will be a lot better than the
Dude, I wish.
0 that was up here in Nashville.
This 30-degree nonsense up here. I'm over it.
Yep. It's no fun when it snows. Except for the kids. My daughter loved it. She was out playing all week long because there was no school, which doesn't make sense because school's virtual. Why do you have off of school if it's virtual?
Yeah.
But anyhow, I think we're good to go. So everybody, really appreciate you watching tonight. We'll be back on March 20th with the next HangarReady. Until then, see you in the verse.
See ya.
Bye.
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 Guys, thanks for watching.